perhaps you're gay. Is there a point to all these fancy clothes? With all these buckles from your head down to your toes. Very simple, but I'm just another girl. It's not so easy, but I'm giving it a whirl. Is there something that you're trying to prove? With all the makeup and the way you move, are you looking for some sympathy? No, I'm trying to be the best girl I can be. Very simple, but I'm just another girl. It's not so easy, but I'm giving it a whirl. Like my martini stride, cosmos I won't deny. Smoke those long cigarettes. Thank God I'm not dead yet. Done all these crazy things, short of a wedding ring. Just
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Calista Solon, and you're watching nlcTrans. Tonight I'm here with my dear friend, co-host, Tara Alexander. Renee is not with us tonight. Not quite sure where she is, but we'll probably be hearing from her. Anyway, well, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that we have a little B-roll for you later.
Yep. We have about 9.5 minutes of PSAs.
PSAs. So we're going to get you some PSAs later. Very cool. Well, and there's sometimes the PSAs can be really wonderful. So,
and this is mostly stuff we've covered before, with just some updates based on current news.
Yeah. So anyway, we're going to talk about other things. Well, or something. We will talk about something. I'm not sure exactly what.
Well, what do you have to talk about?
Oh, I have a whole bunch of things here I can talk at you about.
All right.
But anyway.
Well, did you want to do a few announcements first?
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Do the announcements.
All right. Well, these are announcements from OutCT, the goings-ons and the happenings here in southeastern Connecticut. OutCT is a group that has gotten together to primarily put together a New London Pride event in 2014, but also to sort of be the central point of fun, exciting things that are going on in the GLBTQIA community. So on Saturday, August 3rd, Patty Issues and Ben Rimmelauer, fresh from a sold-out run in downtown New York City, Ben's critically acclaimed personal story of growing up amidst all things Patty is not to be missed. The O'Neill Theater welcomes the OutCT community to come and be a part of the O'Neill. Buy one ticket and bring a friend for free. Discount code is OutCT14FREE. If you go to the outct.org website, there's more information and phone numbers and such. And then on Sunday, August 4th, the following day, the Connecticut Gay Men's Chorus, now in its 27th season, was named Best Vocal Group in Connecticut. They'll be performing at the Hygienic Art Park on Bank Street from 7 to 9 p.m. $10 admission or $8 for Hygienic members. And I think that means you're a member of the Hygienic Art community, not that you're clean.
Okay.
And then the big event that they have coming up, which is actually how the Hygienic got its name, because they were trying to advertise way back when that they had clean food.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Cool place.
Cool place, yes. The big event that they've got planned, this is a fundraising event for OutCT in hopes of getting them on the road to New London Pride 2014, is a family outing at Ocean Beach Park in New London. Lots of full day of activities and sun and lots of fun. That's Sunday, August 11th from 11 a.m. until late at Ocean Beach Park in New London. They're planning to have vendors on the boardwalk and family activities. I know they've got a few things. They've got a hula hoop dancer scheduled to come. I've seen a video of her perform. She's very impressive. Live broadcast from Miss L from Gemmin 107.7. Meet and greet for girls from 3 to 4, a meet and greet for guys from 4 to 5, live entertainment on the Nautilus deck from 11 a.m. till 6 p.m. At 6 p.m. there'll be a tea dance, and then at night they'll do a movie on the beach. They're planning to do a catered picnic from 1 to 2:30 in Port and Starboard. The picnic does cost money. You can go and attend all these events for free, but the picnic will cost money. They've got a deal going with Ocean Beach that you can get parking and the picnic for a package price. For an individual person, it's $25 for parking and the picnic. For a family of 4, it's $60 for parking and the picnic for all 4. Otherwise, you just pay the parking or walk to the park or whatever you want to do, and the rest of the activities are free. So that's Sunday, August 11th. So that's coming up.
Sure.
Nice to have a nice day on the beach, Ocean Beach, before the weather goes away entirely.
Yeah. Yeah, usually, you've got through Labor Day, and after that it might start to get a little funky, but Ocean Beach is a lovely place, so by all means go. Anyway, I was just going to read you a little piece here. I know you were looking for some things, and I don't know how much you found, but we've been talking a lot about Russia lately, and this was by the editorial board of the New York Times, just a little piece. This was Mr. Putin's War on Gays.
Well, they've got the Winter Olympics coming up next year, and they've been passing some very stringent laws that are very homophobic in nature.
Yeah, you were telling me about something.
So it's in the news.
Yeah, it's been crazy. You were telling me about some really awful things that were happening, but
I think that was in the Ukraine, but I haven't found it in the news yet.
Yeah, next door. Anyway, this was, I'll just read this quickly to you. This was a piece from the New York Times. Anyway, to the long list of Russians whom President Vladimir Putin is persecuting, and gay people and those who support add gay people and those who support gay rights. Along with political dissidents, journalists, and billionaire businessmen, they are increasingly the focus of repellent laws and repressive practices that could send them and anyone who dares defend them to jail. For some time, anti-gay sentiment has been spreading in Russia's conservative society, encouraged by the Kremlin and the Russian Orthodox Church. But Mr. Putin and his government have taken that to a new level by legitimizing the hate-mongering and legislation. Earlier this month, he signed a law banning the adoption of Russian-born children to gay couples, and to any couple or single parent living in any country where marriage equality exists. Well, that would be us. Last month, Mr. Putin signed a law allowing the police to arrest tourists and foreigners suspected of being gay or pro-gay and detain them for up to 14 days. He also
suspected of being gay or suspected of being pro-gay.
Imagine that, yeah. He also signed a bill classifying homosexual propaganda as pornography with vague wording that could subject anyone arguing for tolerance or educating children about homosexuality to arrest and fines. There is no defense for such actions, which occur against a backdrop of growing violence against gays and could be seen as a license for even more violence. Russia is in danger of moving from pursuing the rule of law to the rule of hate. The new laws contravene Russian commitments to human rights and fundamental freedoms under the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights and Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe. They also contradict the charter of the International Olympic Committee, which calls sport a human right and states that any individual or every individual must have the possibility of practicing sport without discrimination of any kind. With laws like these on the books, gay athletes, gay fans, and others who speak their minds could put themselves in legal jeopardy by attending the 2014 Winter Olympics, which are in Sochi, Russia, in February. The United States, which has made great strides in accepting and protecting gay rights, has expressed concern about the new laws but needs to be more forceful. So does the International Olympic Committee, which too often fails to defend the Olympic ideals and should be leading a full-throated international campaign to insist that Russia repeal these laws. If nothing else, there is pure self-interest for Mr. Putin in this. Gay athletes and supporters of gay rights could decide not to attend the games. More nascent calls for a formal Olympic boycott could gather steam that will not produce the self-congratulatory showcase event over which Mr. Putin is so eager to preside. Anyway, so yeah, got the Winter Olympics coming up, and all hell is breaking loose in Russia. I know you were telling me, and certainly, these kind of laws, and I know this is happening over there. We've talked about this. Sort of these kind of laws sort of give people permission, or the appearance of permission, to act out in violence against people. In this case, gay people who they don't like. So you legislate this kind of legislation in some way, not literally, but it does in some way sort of offer them permission to be violent. And we've seen this again and again. So kind of a dangerous situation. I know you had said there was some
yes, I was wrong about the state, though. It wasn't in
Ukraine?
No, it was in Georgia.
Okay.
Another former Soviet state. In the capital of Tbilisi, former Soviet Republic of Georgia is contending with the aftermath of an episode of mass violence that took place in May. So this was a little while ago. In Georgia's capital, a mob of thousands. Should start by saying that there was a small protest, small vigil, anti-homophobic vigil. So these were LGBT supporters that had gotten a permit to assemble on the steps of the Capitol to hold a vigil. Mm-hmm. And some of the conservative Orthodox priests had gotten together and encouraged their congregations to hold a counter-protest. And they billed it as a family-friendly, peaceful protest for traditional family values. You ended up having hundreds to thousands of people overwhelming the police lines, crushing the police to get at this small group of anti-homophobic supporters. And crazy, crazy things happened. There was video of priests wielding bar stools as weapons to hit people with. The police had ushered a group of women onto one of the buses, and the mob had broken all the windows in the bus, and they were cutting their own arms trying to reach through the broken glass to hit and throw things at the people on the bus, and it was an horrific thing. So having said that, I will finish reading this, but because I just found this, so I don't know if it covers everything I heard before, but a mob of thousands attacked a small group of people who were staging a protest against homophobia. The leaders of the attack were Georgian Orthodox priests. Now, historically in Georgia, the Orthodox Church has had great political power. They have basically been in power even when there's a government in power. So the fact that they now supposedly have a democratically elected government, that democratically elected government now has to figure out how to handle this traditionally very powerful component of society.
Right.
Historically, priests haven't been prosecuted for this kind of violence. The Georgian Orthodox priests led the attack. The episode raised issues about human rights in a religiously conservative country, as well as questions about the balance of power between church and state. The incident began when members of Georgia's lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender community and their supporters obtained a permit to hold a vigil on the steps of Parliament. They planned to mark the International Day Against Homophobia on May 17th. When some of the leaders of the Georgian Orthodox Church heard about it, they urged their congregation to come to a counter-demonstration, which was promoted as a peaceful, family-oriented event. When the day came, it was anything but peaceful. Led by the Orthodox priests, the crowd overwhelmed the police barrier around a small group of anti-homophobia demonstrators. This is the article that I had come across before. Video from the clash shows a priest brandishing a stool as a weapon. Other priests are heard to curse and yell, "Kill them! Kill them!" Nino Karchilava was part of a small group of demonstrators that never even made it to the parliament steps. They were surrounded by counter-demonstrators and threatened until police hustled them into a minibus in an effort to get them away from the mob. Karchilava is a project assistant for the Women's Initiative supporting group in Tbilisi. She says the bus was overwhelmed by attackers who smashed most of the windows and thrust their hands through the broken glass to get at demonstrators inside. Quote, one guy was hitting at me, and I just tried to communicate, and I tried to say, what are you doing? And when I saw the blood around, I couldn't figure out whether the blood was mine or not, and then I realized it wasn't my blood, it was their blood. They were ready to kill themselves in order to kill us. It was really insane.
Yeah. That's hate.
That's, yeah, and... Well, so it's a test for the rule of law now, whether or not the state will actually prosecute these priests. There were a few priests arrested, so it's already an historic event in the state of Georgia. But the LGBT rights group said they're still waiting for proof that the government will hold the spiritual leaders to account under the law.
Wow. Yeah,
that was the article.
Pretty crazy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so anyway, apparently there has been some call to sort of ignore their anti-gay laws temporarily for the Olympics.
Yeah.
And there was
suspend the law that was passed.
Suspend the law. Well, anyway, apparently the Russian legislator that was behind a lot of this, the author.
You can't do that.
Is saying, no, you can't do that. Anyway, I had a little article here on him, which I will, just to follow that up, this is pretty quick. I will read this to you. This was from The Advocate. This is Vitaly Milanov, the St. Petersburg legislator of the United Russia Party, claims the government cannot suspend the enforcement of Russia's newly approved anti-gay legislation, which he co-sponsored during the Sochi Olympics, according to BBC's Russian language service. His statement follows on the heels of verbal assurances Russian officials gave to the International Olympic Committee last week, promising foreigners would be exempt from the country's anti-gay propaganda law during the 2014 Winter Games. Milanov's statement highlights concerns raised by the Human Rights Campaign CEO Stephen Burke, who quickly dismissed the statements of Russian officials in a letter to NBC last week, pointing out that verbal assurances do not guarantee the safety and security of openly LGBT Olympic visitors. According to a translation of the BBC article posted on Joe My God, St. Petersburg legislator Vitaly Milanov of the United Russia Party has asked the government to refrain from selectively enforcing the law on gay propaganda, which he co-sponsored. On Friday, the International Olympic Committee informed journalists that the Russian government had assured the safety of all athletes and spectators without respect to their sexual orientation. I haven't heard any comments from the government of the Russian Federation, but I know that it is acting in accordance with Russian law, and if a law has been approved by the federal legislature and signed by the president, then the government has no right to suspend it. It doesn't have the authority, said Milanov in an interview with Interfax. Further, during an interview with Echo Moskvy, the legislator claimed that the law on defending children from propaganda of non-traditional values for which he lobbied has nothing to do with the ordinary life of adults, adding that he personally doesn't know any LGBT athletes. I can say that the best figure skating in the world is the Soviet School of Figure Skating. All of our people have been completely traditional. I am personally acquainted with many Olympic champions. In fact, I practically grew up in those families, admitted the United Russia delegate. So yeah, we don't have any gay athletes in Russia. No.
Although
none that would admit to it.
after the
anyway.
steroid use of the Russian athletes in the 70s, they have some transgender ones.
Yes. I don't know. It's crazy. But yeah. So here we go. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. The 2014 Winter Olympics, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so that's what's going on over there. I don't quite understand. It's just crazy to me. Things seem to be going very well, and then all of a sudden we're going to just descend into this kind of thing.
The progress that we've seen in the West hasn't been mirrored in the East. We've talked in the past about the backlash that occurs with progress.
Yeah.
Every time society lurches forward, there's some backlash from the status quo segment of society that doesn't want to see change made. And what makes society work is that constant balance between being more progressive and being more status quo. There's either too much of either one will cause problems, societal problems.
Sure.
And and some of those societal problems could be a 100-year culture war that we're only in year 50 of.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting next year.
Sure. Anyway, did you have something there you wanted to talk about, or?
I did have one piece here and some information to go with it, and it would segue into our PSAs.
Okay. That's fine.
This was posted a few days ago. A gay Iowa teen commits suicide, allegedly bullied by classmates. And what the reason it made the news, what was so shocking about it, or surprising about it, was since 2008 they've had 5 teens complete their suicide out of the same high school.
Wow.
4 in 2008, 1 in 2009, and 1 this year.
Those aren't good statistics for that high school.
So the story is that the Iowa community is reeling. According to his mother, he was subjected to intense bullying at Southeast Polk High School because of his sexuality and because of his mixed race background. Calling her 16-year-old son's death the most painful thing I've been through my entire life, saying that it must have been really horrible if my son got to the point where he would choose to hurt my husband, my daughters, and myself by taking his own life. She does say that several people who are gay or lesbian teens told us that her son had saved them from committing suicide when they were feeling desperate.
Yeah.
So it was something that he was able to be there for some of his peers, but unfortunately he apparently didn't have anyone he felt he could turn to and talk to in his own time of need, which is unfortunate because there are many resources out there for people who are feeling suicidal or believe that they know someone who's feeling suicidal.
Yeah.
He did apparently post a note to Twitter before deciding to take his life. And that's at another school in another town. So some of the information that I have as a result of that story, it got me looking up some of those resources. In particular, there's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline, the Trevor Project, and StopBullying.gov. And so I have a couple pieces here from them. From StopBullying.gov, one of the comments that always come up is sort of what's the difference between bullying and kids just being kids? Where does that line get drawn when you're learning how to fit into social structure, and you're bound to make mistakes as a kid, versus actually bullying?
Right.
And so the definition that they provide for bullying is an imbalance of power and repetition. So kids who bully use their power, such as physical strength or intimidation, access to embarrassing information, or popularity to control or harm others. Power imbalance can change over time and in different situations, even if they involve the same people. And bullying behaviors happen more than once or have the potential to happen more than once. And so that's, when something happens more than once or there's the threat of it continuing to happen, and it's due to an imbalance of power, due to embarrassing information, physical size, physical strength, popularity, etc., that's when you move into the category of bullying. And as they note there, and it's good to remember that just because somebody is a victim of bullying doesn't mean they can't also become a bully to someone else,
Sure.
or even to their own bullier if the situation changes.
Yeah.
Types of bullying: there's verbal bullying, social bullying, and physical bullying. Teasing, name-calling, inappropriate sexual comments, taunting, threatening to cause harm, leaving someone out on purpose, telling children not to be friends with someone, spreading rumors, embarrassing someone in public, hitting, kicking, pinching, spitting, tripping, pushing, taking or breaking someone's things, making mean or rude hand gestures. And we know in this day and age that also all goes online.
Yeah.
The 2011 Youth Risk Behavior Surveillance System from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention indicates that nationwide, 20% of students in grades 9 to 12 experience bullying. And we know if you're in the LGBTQIA community, that's much, much higher.
Yeah.
So if bullying, not just bullying, but a lot of, from the standpoint of the teen perspective, it can also happen among adults. So I wanted to go through very quickly some of the warning signs of suicide and what you might do if you suspect someone. This is from the Suicide Prevention Lifeline, which is also available as a link from the Trevor Project homepage. Warning signs of suicide include talking about wanting to die, looking for a way to kill oneself, talking about feeling hopeless or having no purpose. And that's a little less obvious than
Sure.
wanting to take your own life. Talking about feeling trapped or feeling unbearable pain. Talking about being a burden to others. Increased use of alcohol or drugs. Acting anxious, agitated, or reckless. Sleeping too little or too much. Withdrawing or feeling isolated. Showing rage or talking about seeking revenge. And displaying extreme mood swings. The more of these signs a person shows, the greater the risk. Warning signs are associated with suicide, but may not be what causes the suicide. If you know someone who is exhibiting some of these warning signs and you're worried, do not leave the person alone. Remove any firearms, alcohol, drugs, sharp objects that could be used in a suicide attempt. Call the U.S. National Suicide Prevention Lifeline at 800-273-TALK. They can give you some guidance. Take the person to an emergency room or seek help from a medical or mental health professional if you believe they're going to harm themselves imminently. The biggest thing to note is that you don't have to be alone when you're trying to help somebody who you think is facing suicide. And suicide is a public health issue. Media and online coverage of suicide has brought about something interesting. I'm not sure I'm going to find it now. It's called suicide contagion. When suicide is talked about in the media in certain ways, talking about kids who have successfully committed suicide, or
that's kind of a poor choice of words.
Exactly, glamorizing it by giving it big splashy headlines, by showing pictures of the crime scene or pictures of the mourning parents. These kinds of things, for someone who's contemplating suicide, can reinforce that desire.
Wow.
Can say, well, look, I'll get my 5 minutes of fame, or hey. If you hear someone talk about having successfully committed suicide, well, at least I'll be good at something.
Yeah.
So there are important recommendations that these online resources have for how to talk about suicide, even how to talk to someone who you think, might be contemplating suicide.
Yeah.
Because there are certain ways that they've found to talk about taking your own life and not successfully committing suicide.
Right.
And it doesn't really have to make a lot of sense to you or me. It's all about how it sounds to the person who's contemplating suicide. So they don't have to be alone. If you're contemplating suicide, if you're thinking about hurting yourself, there are plenty of online resources. The PSAs will give you some of them to contact. There's the Suicide Prevention Lifeline. There's the Trevor Project. Both of those are great places to reach out to that have anonymous 24 hours phone numbers that you can call to just talk to somebody. They're just there to listen. They're not there to judge. And if you're somebody who thinks there's someone in their life, in your life, that might be contemplating it, you should also give these places a call to talk about resources that are available for you to help the people that you think are at risk.
Yeah.
I'll breathe now.
Okay.
And
go ahead.
I'll take a break while we roll the PSA. It's about 9.5 minutes.
I had a raffle for the First Hug, First Kiss. It was $1 a ticket. I bought 50 tickets, and they pulled my name at the FRG holiday party. It's a surprise that I won, so good surprise though.
I think it was meant to be.
I think so too.
I think that it's significant because it's the first time where we can actually show who we are. Being in the military where it was not allowed, we can show it. We can be public about it. We don't have to hide our relationship. And I think that it's something that is going to open a lot of doors for not just our relationship, but all the other gay and lesbian relationships that are in the military now.
I feel good about it. It's nice to be able to be myself. It's been a long time coming. I've been in for almost 2.5 years, and this is very recent. The changes come into effect, and it's been nothing but positive.
I'm coming out.
I'm coming out.
We're coming out
for equal rights.
Denying a minority the same rights you were born with
Is hate.
Refusing to separate church and state
is hate. Spending millions to eliminate someone's right to family
Is hate.
Prop 8 is just the beginning.
Our fight goes deeper than marriage equality.
It's about human rights.
The same rights for every American in every state.
Thousands all over the country are speaking out.
But it's not enough.
Now, more than ever, it's time to get involved.
That's where you come in. Start a dialogue.
Stand up for your peers.
Get educated.
Keep an open mind.
Talk to your friends. Talk to your family.
Write your representative.
Be heard.
No matter where you are.
Tell them who you are.
Tell them what you stand for. Fight.
Fight for equal rights.
Equal rights.
Equal rights.
And together?
Together we can make our voices heard. No hate.
No hate.
No hate.
Learn more about how you can be heard through our silent protest at www.nohatecampaign.com.
Whether you are gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or questioning,
you have nothing to be ashamed of.
There is nothing wrong with you. You are loved, and you are not alone.
You're standing with me.
you're standing with me.
You're standing with me. I know what it's like to be bullied.
I know how painful it can be.
I know what it feels like to be scared.
I've been stared at, pointed at, laughed at, made fun of, but I survived.
I survived.
You might feel like no one understands.
And no one cares.
But I understand.
And I care.
Not only does it get better, but you get stronger for making it through.
I know it doesn't seem easy. And I'm not gonna lie, it can be really hard sometimes. But you have an entire community of people that relate and support you. All you have to do is ask for help.
If you can't reach out to friends or family,
Many schools sponsor clubs and outreach groups like Gay Straight Alliances.
There are even LGBT inclusive churches all over this country. If you're considering hurting yourself or you feel like you have nowhere else to turn,
Please call our friends at the Trevor Project, a confidential 24-hour suicide prevention hotline.
There is hope.
bigger strides are being made now more than ever for our rights.
But we need your help to keep on fighting.
We're on the cusp of incredible change.
You didn't choose to be gay.
You were born that way.
And you are loved by so many people for who you are.
Set an example for future generations of LGBT youth.
Live proud so others can live free.
If you hang in there and hold your head up high,
You will get through this.
I did.
We did.
I did.
We did.
And it made me the person I am today.
Stay strong.
Be courageous.
Be proud.
Be you.
Be you.
How serious is bullying?
9 out of 10 LGBT students have been bullied at school this year alone.
The harassment has caused 2/3 of these students to feel unsafe.
And 28% of them to drop out. Bullying has led to an epidemic of LGBT teen suicides that has sent shockwaves through the community.
There are over 30,000 suicides each year.
That's one suicide every 17 minutes.
For every completed suicide,
there's an estimate of 100 to 200 attempts.
LGBT teens are 6 to 9 times more likely to attempt suicide than their straight peers.
More than a quarter of transgender youth and a third of lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth have attempted suicide.
And these numbers just reflect those who have reported abuse.
you might be asking yourself,
How can these statistics be so high? What's convincing these kids that things won't get better?
Look around.
Our political and religious leaders tell LGBT youth that they have no future.
They can't get married.
They can't donate blood.
They can't serve our country openly.
They're not even allowed to adopt in certain states.
What are these kids supposed to think?
They're being shown by the adults in our country that there are no solutions to their problems.
What's worse, these laws that legislate discrimination
teach bullies that what they're doing is acceptable.
Our government treats the LGBT community like second-class citizens. Why shouldn't they?
That homophobia trickles down to our youth.
Kids are taught by example.
These biases are learned.
bullying does not stop at kids or schools either.
It can happen anywhere.
From the workplace to the home.
Bullying isn't always about fists. It often starts with a joke.
Saying, that's so gay?
Mocking someone for being different.
It can all hurt.
In the age of Facebook, Twitter, and smartphones, sometimes there can be no escape from the torment.
The bullying is relentless.
All around them. All the time.
Enough is enough.
This is our wake-up call.
Bullying isn't harmless or innocent or kids being kids.
Our youth are being bullied to death.
You and I can't continue to keep ignoring this problem anymore. We have to hold ourselves accountable.
We have to set the example.
Parents, talk to your kids.
Kids, talk to your parents.
Don't be a bystander.
Be someone's lifeline.
Take action.
Inaction can be just as bad as bullying itself.
If you make a mistake, fess up to it.
It's never too late to change.
We can never replace those we've lost.
But we can save lives now.
Be heard. Be heard. Be heard.
You never know who might be listening.
When you feel like you're different or no one understands you, it's not always easy to ask for help. But no matter what you're dealing with, confusion about your sexual orientation or gender, sadness or thoughts of suicide, you don't have to do it alone. I'm Daniel Radcliffe, and I believe that reaching out for help is the bravest thing a person can do. If you are struggling and need support, call the Trevor Lifeline at 1-866-488-7386. It's free and confidential, and trained counsellors are there to listen 24/7 without judgment. To learn more about the Trevor Project's life-saving work for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender or questioning young people, go to thetrevorproject.org. Remember, you are never alone. You don't need to keep thoughts of suicide to yourself. There is help to be had, and there is nothing wrong with asking for it.
Well, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that. All wonderful, useful stuff, and hopefully, if there's somebody out there that happens to need those resources, they will seek them out and use them. Anyway, it's a tough subject to talk about, and certainly, as you know, in our community, yeah, exactly.
That's why there's this document talking about suicide.
Yeah, certainly in our community, we've all sort of been, it's something that's been very close to us. So it's kind of a tough thing, but it's important, and so it's good that we can sort of get the information out there.
And I guess if it's all right before you move on.
Yeah, no, please.
There's a little research finding block of information here. Discussions about suicide deaths often rely heavily on numbers and statistics. The following research-based findings may be helpful in understanding the complexities of suicide ideation and behavior. A suicide attempt is not a strong predictor of completed suicide. 4 out of 5 people who die by suicide are male. However, 3 out of every 4 who make a suicide attempt are female.
That's interesting.
Suicide rates generally increase with age, with the highest rates among those in the midlife years, which we actually kind of knew socially, in a social conscious way. We sort of know the midlife crisis, the Willy Lomans, that it's there. There is not a lot of solid information available about suicide deaths among LGBT people. Be careful not to misrepresent data on suicide attempts by LGBT people as indicative of LGBT suicide deaths. The two are not the same. In U.S. surveys, lesbian, gay, and bi adolescents and adults who have lesbian, gay, and bi adolescents and adults have 2 to 6 times higher rates of reported suicide attempts compared to comparable straight people. Surveys of transgender people consistently report markedly high rates of suicide attempts. 2 key suicide risk factors for LGBT people are individual level factors such as depression and experiences of stigma and discrimination, including anti-LGBT hostility, harassment, bullying, and family rejection. There is growing evidence that the 2 factors are linked. So, experiences of stigma and discrimination combined with depression are increasingly acknowledged as high risk factors. They talk about not using terms like bully-side. Don't use words like successful and unsuccessful or failed when talking about suicide. Instead, simply talk about suicide, death, attempted suicide. Avoid the phrase committed suicide. Say die by suicide, or that the death was a suicide death, as the word committed is usually associated with a criminal act and can re-victimize surviving family. So there's a bunch of stuff like that in these documents, and you can find them on the as links off the Trevor Project homepage. Sorry, I thought there was a URL on here, but there's not.
Yeah.
But there are a bunch of resources on the trevorproject.org page. So. Yeah.
Certainly, there are a lot of resources out there, and in this day of the internet, it shouldn't be that hard to find some.
Well, no, and right on the front here, all the people that are getting behind and sponsoring this document, you've got GLAAD, you've got the Movement Advancement Project, GLSEN, the Johnson Family Foundation, the Trevor Project, American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, the Center for American Progress, the Human Rights Campaign, the National Coalition for LGBT Health, the National Gay and Lesbian Task Force, PFLAG, and Services and Advocacy for Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, and Transgender Elders.
Very fine print.
Very fine print. So
Yeah.
there are a lot of organizations out there, and if you can
Yes.
get in touch with any one of them, they can put you in touch with resources.
I know if you go on the internet and type in suicide, a huge amount of this kind of stuff will come up.
Yeah, so go on the internet and type in Trevor. And let's get to the Trevor Project.
There's plenty of stuff out there and plenty of information and help to be had.
Yeah.
So, I know I've done that. I went on the internet and started to type in suicide. I was looking up some research or some statistics, I think, and I was amazed at how many suicide prevention hotlines and things immediately came up. So it's
and a lot of times I think it's as or more useful for the people, for the family and friends of the potential victim.
Yeah. Right.
The person who might be considering taking their own life, who might consider a suicide death. I know there was a story on the radio a little while back about suicide among soldiers, and this guy and his brother were both soldiers, and he knew his brother was acting funny, and so he invited him out on a camp out that he and his brother used to go on with their dad when they were kids, and they'd go out to this place, they'd go fishing, and they'd drink beer and stuff, and he didn't know how to talk to his brother about suicide, about what was going on. And one night by the fire, he said, "So what's going on?" And his brother told him nothing. And he looked at him and said, "No, I mean, what's really going on?" And his brother basically glared at him and got up and walked away. And the next day they went home, and he went back to his base because his leave was up, and 11 days later his brother killed himself.
Wow.
And so he's, what could I have done? I didn't.
Sure.
I didn't know what to do for my brother. I didn't know what to do. So in that case, they were talking about the resources that were available in the military for soldiers to identify the warning signs for someone who might be suicidal and how to intervene. And certainly, so to make it more broadly, we've got lots of organizations even outside the military for the same thing. It's a very common thing to know somebody who has those warning signs, whom you're worried about, but you don't know how to help.
Sure. Yeah.
So you can call them too.
Yeah. What do I do?
What do I do? I've got someone I'm worried about. What do I do?
Yeah.
You can call the helplines as well, and they'll put you in touch with the right resources.
Yeah. Good advice. And I believe we were actually supposed to have somebody come in and talk on this very subject. We had a guest scheduled, and unfortunately she hurt her back and wasn't able to come. And hopefully we will get her on.
We may still be able to get her on, yeah.
On a future episode. So hopefully that will work out. But it's unfortunate.
With those plans in the works and on hold when this story hit, I basically just pulled together all the stuff.
Yeah, sort of apropos. But at any rate, we are actually going to run out of time before long. I just wanted to read this quickly to you because I thought this was interesting. Well, it's interesting to me anyway. This is apparently it was been a $1.35 million grant to study a transgender military service. This is the Palm Center. The Research Institute, which coordinated research into the military's Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy for more than 10 years, has received a $1.35 million grant to study transgender service in the U.S. Armed Forces over the next 3 years. The Palm Center's Transgender Military Initiative Project Director, Indra Lucero, has commissioned 11 studies to be conducted by 16 scholars that will investigate whether the inclusion of trans troops in the military would undermine readiness of the U.S. Armed Forces. Area of study will range from experiences of foreign militaries and sports programs to privacy and medical accommodations. This academic research will inform an important public conversation by providing facts and evidence about transgender military service and gender expression in armed forces. Militaries around the world are updating their policies and we are already conducting research in Canada, Britain, and Australia to learn whether their trans-inclusive regulations have impacted readiness. Under current U.S. military regulations, openly acknowledging a transgender identity or any gender-affirming surgeries or medical procedures disqualifies a service member, since gender dysphoria is technically classified by the military as a mental illness. Nathaniel Frank, a former scholar with the Palm Center and the author of Unfriendly Fire, How the Gay Ban Undermines the Military and Weakens America, welcomed the news, telling BuzzFeed the grant was a major initiative by a key player who educated the public on gay military service. The Transgender Military Initiative is the most comprehensive and largest research project conducted on trans service in the U.S. Armed Forces to date, according to the Palm Center. It's absolutely something we need to do, Frank told BuzzFeed. I think it should take as long as Don't Ask, Don't Tell, but I do think that the research piece of the puzzle does need to be put into place.
Yeah, absolutely.
Research, good thing. That's sort of a... I don't know exactly what's going to come out of this, but it's certainly interesting. And
no, but I mean, you can understand where you had a bunch of military leaders who came out and said that repealing Don't Ask, Don't Tell won't affect our readiness, and it was because they had been going through an extensive study of the military and military readiness around the world, and the study that they wanted to have done came back and said, no, you'll be fine, in a nutshell. And so they were comfortable then relying on that evidence-based research.
Sure. And apparently a lot of that research came from this group.
Right. So the fact that they're now kicking that off for trans inclusion in the military is a really good thing, because when they're done and the time is right, assuming they find what we expect they'll find, then the military will be able to lean on this study when they come out and say trans inclusion won't affect readiness.
Yeah. So good thing. It's a good thing. Don't know exactly.
You sort of understand where an organization like the military is not going to want to just guess and wing it and see how it turns out.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. So we'll see how that turns out. It's probably going to take some time. But in the meantime, we are actually out of time. Once again, this happens, like every week. Yes, anyway, so we're out of time.
How do they say it? You've wasted another hour.
Yes, that was click and clack or something. Yeah.
Yes.
Anyway, we're out of time, so thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again next week. Bye-bye.